Thursday the 7th of November 2019. Could I ask everyone in the room if they would put their phones on silent or switch them off, please. This meeting will also be recorded and will be available for the public. I'll ask the clerk to confirm the SEDERUNT, please. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you, Chair. We've got 12 members present, and I have apologies from Councillors Dempster, Maitland and Tate.
Thank you, Tracy. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Okay. Can we confirm the minutes of the previous meeting? Agreed. Thank you. I'll get Tracy to outline the procedures for this meeting.
Thank you, Chair. The Planning Applications Committee will consider each application in turn as detailed on the agenda. The case officer or other appointed officer will make a short presentation addressing the determining issues accompanied by digital images. Any late information, amendments or corrections will be reported at this time. Members may ask questions of officers following the presentation on points for clarification. The Chairman has been provided with a list of eligible representatives who have registered to speak at this meeting within the period specified in Council policy. No other persons will be allowed to speak. The Chairman will individually invite those who have registered in advance to speak to make their presentation, after which they may be questioned by committee members. No questions may be asked of members. The order of eligible parties being heard will be as follows: third parties objecting to an application, third parties supporting an application, statutory consultees objecting to an application, elected members of Dumfries and Galloway Council who are not members of the Planning Applications Committee. Such members should withdraw from the committee chamber after making their presentation, and applicants or their agents. Representatives have been placed in alphabetical order, and a copy of the public speaking list is available from the committee officer taking notes of our proceedings. Presentations will be strictly limited to 3 minutes per person, except for national and major developments, by which their very nature are more complex, where the time limit will be 5 minutes. The Chairman of the committee will ask you to come to a conclusion if you take too long. Representatives are encouraged to use this time allotted to clarify any points they consider material and address the determining issues. Certain matters are not normally material planning considerations and will not be taken into account by the Council when deciding on a planning application. Representatives should not raise any new matters without explaining why they were not raised earlier with the case officer. Please do not repeat what is in the report, as members will have already read the report. After all representations have been heard, the meeting is then in formal session and no members of the public may address the committee from the public gallery. The Planning Applications Committee will then proceed to determine the application or, where appropriate, agree a recommendation to be made to full Council, who will determine the application.
Thank you for that, Tracy. We now move on to agenda item number 4, which is the erection of a detached annex for use as an additional letting accommodation, retrospective, brackets amended design to that previously approved under 18/0658/full at Huntingdon 32 Lovers Walk, Dumfries. The application number for this is 19/1138/full. It's approved subject to conditions, and here to give the report is Robert. Robert, would you like to give us a presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm covering for the case officer today, Iona Brooke. I can confirm that I have been out in this site previously and taken photographs and had a look at it, but that was back sometime in May. To bring you up to date, the new presentation has been done. So this is a local planning application in more ways than one. We're obviously located in the Council's chamber at the moment, which, if I can get the pointer to work, which I don't seem to be able to do, is just down at the bottom of the screen, about a third of the way across in from the left-hand side. The application site, as you can see, is on Lovers Walk itself, just near the junction between Watling Street and Lovers Walk. The application site, and we'll come on to that, is just the kind of dogleg area that's branching off towards the northwest that you can see there. This is a view showing the block plans. So you've got the established building occupying the majority of the site, and then, like I say, you've got that that dock leg going off to the northwest, which accommodates the footprint of the building. The existing building you can see in the main part of the site is used as a guest house with 4 letting bedrooms, and that obtained planning permission. It's in the report at 1.3 under 171632 FUL. Moving to the annex itself, what you see here are approved elevations and actual elevations as built. So for the avoidance of doubt, the 2 as built sets of elevations in the bottom half of this slide represent what the application is for. The 2 sets you have in the top part of the slide represent what was given planning permission under the terms of previous application 180658 FUL. Again, the background to this application and how it came to be is at paragraphs 1.3 and 1.4, and that covers the previous application too. Similarly, you have floor plans as approved under the previous planning application on the left-hand side, and as built, which is what's under consideration here because this is a retrospective planning application. Now, the changes to the development are itemised at 1.4 of the report. What you can see is on the elevation to the rear, so that's at the top of the slide on the right-hand side, you can see that there's an exit to the rear of the building. So there's a pedestrian door, which is in opaque glazing. You have a small vestibule there, so you have a further door internally, which is a solid door, and we'll see that slide later. You've also got changes to the fenestration, so that's on the southeastern elevation, so the main elevation at the bottom of each floor plan here, there's a slight change with that, and there's also quite a change, you'll see this in the elevations, in the roof type. So it's gone from a hip roof to a full gabled roof, and you can also see changes in the nature and location of the roof lights upon that as well. But the footprint of this building is the same, the proposed use is the same. Moving on to actual photographs, this shows the context of the development. This is from Lovers Walk. You can see Watling Street coming towards you here, so it shows the junction there. You have the established guest house in the foreground. You can't actually see the annexe from this picture, but we'll just come on to that. So large Victorian era, predominantly sandstone villas they would have all been at one point in time. Looking at the actual annexe as has been built, this is the front elevation. So this is facing southeast, and this is taken from within the curtilage of the existing guest house. This is a different view. This is within the curtilage of the existing guest house. It's looking southwest. So the property you see in the background there is number 10 Watling Street in the lighter material, and you've got the annexe on the right hand side which has been built. And again, like I say, you can see the nature of it. It has a full gable now instead of a hip roof. This is the rear elevation of the annexe as has been built. So this is the northwest elevation. And like I say, you can see that single pedestrian door which has been introduced, but you'll notice that that's opaquely glazed. This is showing the relationship between the rear of the annexe and adjacent properties. So this, again, it's the northwest elevation. It's raised relative to the rear curtilages at Newell Terrace. And it also shows, I think this is quite important given the recommended condition, it shows the existing boundary treatment. So there's quite a small area of land there. It's elevated above the curtilages adjacent to it, and there is a condition recommending that an improved boundary be provided there, primarily to help standards of residential amenity in the locality that otherwise could be prejudiced. This is a view when you're actually within that area. This is a view looking towards the northwest. So you have a solicitor's property on the right-hand side there, and 3 Newell Terrace in the kind of foreground there. Sorry, we can't hear. Okay. Okay, apologies, Chair. I'll try and speak louder. I was saying this is looking towards St John's Church and the properties in Newell Terrace, and it's showing the changed relationship, the elevated nature of that area to the rear of the property. This is a view from Watling Street. So here you're looking northwest. You can see the left-hand side of the main elevation of the annexe. So it's up to about the roof apex. And again, the pointer's not working, but you can see it just to the left of that tree projecting beyond the rear wing. This is a further view from Watling Street, so just to the right-hand side of the red Honda and to the left of the blue Volvo, you can see the gable end of the property there. So it shows you how it fits into the general locality. And this is a more distant view. This is from Newell Terrace, and you can see in the gap between the two buildings in the foreground, you can see the gable end of the annex as has been built. Finally, this shows the interior views of the property as has been built. So on the top left, you can see what is essentially an additional room to the guest house. The left-hand door is the one that leads to the small vestibule, and then the opaquely glazed door which leads to the rear. The right-hand door is to serve the bathroom. The bottom left photograph is just an opposite view to that, so that's looking towards the existing guest house. And on the right-hand side, you can see that exit door labelled as such, opaquely glazed to the rear elevation. So in summary, the recommendation is to grant permission subject to the single condition listed in the report to ensure that there would be no potentially detrimental overlooking of adjacent properties. I'm happy to answer questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Robert. Has any members got any questions for the case officer? Bearing in mind that there's members of the public in here, could you please make sure that your questions are loud and clear so that they can hear? Nobody? Okay, thanks very much. Sorry, John.
Thank you for that report, Robert. You talked about the elevated nature of the ground in which that building has been built. How high up above the ground level of the property it directly looks over would it be, approximately?
Chair, from memory, I don't have an exact measurement, but from memory it would be in the region of between 1 metre and 2 metres.
Okay, if there's nobody else, then we'll move on to speakers. The first speaker to come forward is Artemis Adams. Would you like to please take a seat? And there's a switch for the microphone there's a switch for the microphone just on there that you can...
Is it possible to see the photographs I sent in with my objection?
Is it? No, I'm sorry, we can't show that. You have 3 minutes. I will give you a shout when there's 30 seconds to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know that you're not going to disprove this application, but I'm here because I'm angry. This should never have been given in the first place. We live in a conservation area, a very small conservation area, and I would like to read out what that means. A conservation area is an area of special architectural and historic interest, the character and appearance of which is desirable to preserve and to enhance. So we're supposed to protect the trees and protect the development. One tree was cut down for this building. No permission was ever granted or asked for. And in one of my photographs in my objection, you can actually see the tree from a photograph from the War Memorial. It's a matter of concern to myself and to other people in the area that this planning was ever granted in the first place. And that we have 2 bed and breakfasts that are already for sale, and one over the road that's closed down and been converted back to a domestic house. So it's not as if we need additional accommodation in that area of town. Thank you.
Would you just stay in your seat if that's okay, just in case there's any members would like to question? Any members like to question the speaker? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could Alan Stewart please take a seat? Again, you will have 3 minutes, and I will tell you when you've got 30 seconds to go. And please remain in your seat just in case any members wish to ask any questions. Thank you.
Hello? Yeah. Hi, I'm Alan Stewart. I'm co-owner with my wife, Ligaya, of a listed property in Lovers Walk. One of the attractions of coming to the Lovers Walk area was, of course, it's a conservation area. I admit that in the first application, we, the objectors, were rather naive. we expected this application to be thrown out, literally. Second time round, we're not so naive, which is why there are more objections this time round. We believe the extension overwhelms the area it was built on. You can't walk around this extension. That's how overwhelming it is. I believe I read in a previous papers that someone on the panel didn't find the building overwhelming. I'm afraid the local residents do. The fence, which is going to be mandatory built, nothing has been said about the fence. Is it going to be made from wire, wood, lattice, transparent, opaque, translucent? Surely that fence is there to protect the privacy of the people that land overlooks, and that therefore it should be a completely opaque fence. We did talk to people before we came round to being objectors. There are many people who object who are too ill to attend here, many people who have enough worries without being bothered with this. But the overwhelming opinion was of objection from local people. We note one letter of support in date, which was allowed to be published, but seems to be practically a character reference. Very little to do with planning. We note 4 letters of support over date, which is very convenient as they can't stand up and try and support this application. The objectors, I'm afraid to say, see this as a done deal and feel very let down. That was my conclusion, and I end there.
Thank you very much for that. If you please remain in your seat. Any members got any questions? No. Please resume your seat. Thank you very much. Members, we're now in session. Archie?
Robert, can you go back to the photograph of the back of the, where it's shown across the fence? Yeah, that's it. Yeah. When you look at this particular thing, and then obviously the original application didn't have that door actually in there. I take it that fence was still, the one on the right was still there. I'm trying to find a way of not supporting this, but under planning policies and procedure, I can't think of it. But however, we have got a condition that we can put in place for this particular fence, and I'm wondering if it's possible to, as part of that condition, to have something similar to the one on the left-hand side.
Robert?
Chair, just to confirm, at the time I went out first on site to this property, it was about May time. The building wasn't as advanced as it is now, and I don't think the chips were down there, but certainly that boundary treatment was pre-existing at that time, so it's not been introduced recently. You can see it's quite weathered. In terms of the condition, the intention is to provide a barrier so that the amenity of adjacent properties is protected from overlook, because you've got that change in levels there. You've got a potential level of usage with people sitting out in this area, so it was to safeguard that for the avoidance of doubt and try and introduce something that would act as a screen. At the same time, because it's a conservation area, you want something that's going to be reasonably subtle. So something probably, a screen fence in recessive colours, possibly with some vegetation next to it to soften the impact, was what we were looking for, but I appreciate the condition leaves it open, it doesn't stipulate that.
Councillor Blake?
Thank you, Chairman. During Mr Stewart's presentation, he mentioned about the constraints of the site and the fact that you can't walk round the building. Is that the case? Is there no way round the side of it?
Robert?
It's very tight round the sides of the building. I think that shows the relationship. I mean, the left-hand side there, you've got that distance to the boundary. Now, bearing in mind if you use as a scaling reference the door, which will be in the region of 2 metres in the middle, you're talking, 30, 40 centimetres there, and you've got a similar arrangement on the other side, albeit a hedge. So no, I don't think you could reasonably walk around that property.
You want to come back in?
Yes, please. So in other words, with the prior application, when there were no door there were no overlooking issue. It's the fact that there's now a door, there is an overlooking issue.
Robert?
Yes, that's where the consideration comes from, yeah.
Councillor Carruthers?
I think just to support the original comment for Councillor Dryburn, but that one of the objectors has also raised the fence and should it be opaque or not. I think it should. It's not that detailed to that level within the condition. Maybe we could beef that up, whether it's close-boarded, opaque, or whatever type of language we need to use. But just so it is a complete screen, I think to protect all properties, including the one in front of us.
Sorry, Councillor McClelland.
Thank you very much, Chair. Robert, could you maybe give some clarity then to the recommended decision and wherein there's a sentence that states the annex shall not be brought into use and until the said fence has been formed in complete accordance with the approved scheme, whatever that scheme may be. That looks pretty much like from your photographs that the building could well be in use currently.
Robert?
The advice that's in the report I got from the case officer was the building isn't presently occupied, but I do appreciate it could be. It's just to basically, the purpose of the wording of the condition is to get a trigger point by which it should be implemented. Now, given that it's to protect residential amenity, the trigger point was considered to be use of the building, so that you've got the solution in place before the problem starts, if you like, potentially. So, but the reason it's worded like that, and that's the trigger point, is because it was my understanding from speaking to the case officer that the building's presently unoccupied. It hasn't been brought into use yet.
Thank you, Robert. Councillor McComb.
Thanks, Chair. On page 22, it states the applicant has arranged for coniferous trees to be planted as further screening. Could you indicate on one of the slides where coniferous trees could be planted?
Robert?
Chair, I think you would be looking at that area there, which is obviously quite limited. Hence the recommended condition for the fence.
Thank you. You want to come back in, Jim?
Yeah. Is the applicant still sticking with the idea of planting conifers?
Robert?
As far as I'm aware, yes, that's the situation. The condition is to try and get a fence there, because that's considered a necessary measure to protect amenity.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'm referring to 4.6 as well on page 22. Two questions really for Robert, if I could. Is the door that wasn't originally consented required for fire prevention measures? And did they seek planning advice before they changed the permissions, which were quite clear, before they did what they did? I'm fairly certain I know what the answer to the second question will be, and then I'll come back in if I get the answer. Yep.
Robert?
Chair, the first question, the answer simply is I don't know. It may be a building standards requirement, but certainly not a planning requirement, that's for sure. So I don't know if it's something required under building standards legislation or not. I don't know. The second case is no. What happened was it became obvious that this was being built not in accordance with the originally approved plans, and at that point there was an application made for non-material variation to that application, which we didn't accept because we thought the change was material, and therefore we had the retrospective planning application. But no, I don't think they received any advice, certainly not from planning officers, about the rear door.
Okay, can
you
I come back
in, Andy?
Yes, please. Okay, I think it'd be reasonable to make the assumption that if fire regulations had required it, it would have been allowed in the first instance when it was agreed. Maybe that's a dangerous supposition. They've clearly gone against the direction that was set out. And there's consequences for their actions of not abiding by the planning permission they were given. So, you know, I don't believe, right, that people will always do what a notice tells them. So are we able to suggest, or actually able to enforce, to build that wall back up so there is no rear entrance? Is that possible in terms of the remedies available to us?
Well, we're here to consider the planning in front of us at the moment, but I'll let Robert and maybe David, if he wants to come in, just to clarify a few points there, Andy.
I mean, my view on this one, that, as the Chair says, you're here to consider what's in front of you today. If you impose a condition to make an unacceptable development acceptable, you can do that as long as that condition isn't changing the substance of the application significantly, and as long as it isn't tantamount to a refusal of the application as well. Now, if you wanted to put a condition on saying that that opening should be bricked up, if you like, to me, that's not a significant change to the application by imposing that condition. You would need a timescale kind of trigger point, if you like, similar to the fence condition. You need to find something like that, and if you found that to be unacceptable and you needed a condition, you would need to have reasoning for that condition as well. So you would need to word the condition, and then you would need to provide a reason why you'd impose that condition as well. But I think in this case, yes, in broad terms, you could impose a condition requiring that opening to be bricked up. But at the moment, it is obviously opaquely glazed as well. Okay.
Thank you, Robert. Anything you add, David?
Probably the only thing to add is there's, at the start of each agenda, you've got 6 tests for conditions. One of them is it has to be necessary. Now, as far as I'm concerned with this one here, is it actually necessary to require that to be blocked up? Are there alternative mechanisms that could safeguard amenity as well? And our solution to that was to require the condition for a fence. I'm quite happy to amend that condition to make it very clear that it should be a solid timber fence, just for the avoidance of doubt.
Andy?
Yeah, because I'm picking up something about planting conifers, or that Leylandia, I'm assuming, or something similar. So that means within 10 years they're actually going to be a blight on the houses next door, and not be an improvement for them, because it's got to stop the sunlight getting into their gardens and their houses.
David?
The planting of trees isn't development, so we can't control that by planning. But equally, if we were just to take the word of the applicant here that the trees were going to be planted, what if the trees failed? My solution is to put a fence there as a permanent barrier, which I think is far better. If they wish to have a fence and plant trees as well, that's a matter for themselves. But my favourite solution is definitely a fence.
Thank you, David. I'll take Councillor McKee, then Councillor Hislop. We need to move this on a wee bit. Councillor McKee?
Thanks, Chair. Hey, we're talking about access round about that building, and they're talking about this egress at the back here as being a fire escape. If people get out that door, how are they going to get out of those grounds? You've got a fence right around, and you can't run around the building, so how are they going to escape? I think it mentions a fire escape in the papers.
Okay. Does anyone want to answer that, Robert?
Chair, the difficulty is the whole idea of fire escape and fire safety in properties is entirely a matter for building standards. So I'm simply not professionally qualified to respond to that, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Robert. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, I'm not so worried about the door if it's opaque, etc. But what really annoys me is the fact that you now have a full gable facing onto the back of someone's house where it was going to be a hip roof. So the actual mass of what's facing you now is so much more in your face. I would rather have seen that we got the original plans, which were the hip roof, and we put that in place, because I think that would reduce the impact on surrounding houses.
Robert or David, you want to answer that? No. Well, that's your opinion, Ivor, but its recommendations approved subject to conditions, and that's the application that we have in front of us at the moment. Ian Corrales.
Hi, Chairman. I mean, I've heard a lot of the debate, but I think that the concerns that have been raised have been covered in regards to the beefing up, so to speak, of the condition. It's quite disappointing, the fact that there's been so many material changes before they've on the stance. I know it's difficult to stop a job to reapply and look for some kind of continuity, but I think with what we've actually got in front of us today, I'm comfortable this is the best we can actually do. And the High Hedges Act is obviously another counter to any potential hedges getting out of hand. We do have laws in place that would prevent that.
Councillor Dryber.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. And listening to all members, I think we have to approve the recommendation that's here, but it has to be a solid fence at the back, as suggested, as opposed to trees.
Thank you. Ivor.
Chair, I would move that we refuse this application on the grounds that the gable face onto the rear properties is more imposing, and we should maintain the original plans, which were for a hip roof, as that's less imposing on the neighbouring properties.
Do you have a seconder, Archie? Councillor McKee? Do you have a seconder? Councillor Blake?
Yes, I would like to ask Councillor Hislop to also add in the removal of the rear door, because I think that presents an overlooking issue that wouldn't be there with the original plan.
Councillor Ferguson.
Just some advice of the planning officers. We need to make a decision that's enforceable. I agree with Ivor about the roof, but there's a subtle difference between changing the roof and blocking up a door in terms of, is it reasonable and everything else. So just some advice here is, if that was challengeable, what would be the chances of success?
Is that reasonable?
I can't really comment on the likelihood of success, but certainly if members are minded to refuse this on the basis that what's been built did not accord with what had originally been approved, which did have a hipped roof rather than a full gable and didn't have any rear door, then that's entirely competent for them to do so. If it's refused, there's a right of appeal to the Scottish Ministers where that could be looked at.
Thank you, David. We have a motion and an amendment on the table. I take it, Councillor Blake, you are seconding Councillor Hislop's amendment?
I think he's agreed to the addition of the
okay.
door.
Thank you. Tracy, could you take us through the motion and the amendment, please?
Sorry, can I confirm who proposed the amendment and seconded the amendment? Don't think.
Councillor Hislop was the proposer for the amendment, I believe. Or for the approval, it was Councillor Dryber was he moved the motion, and Councillor McKee was the seconder. Thank you, Tracy.
With all due respect, I seconded Councillor Hislop's motion.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, right. So, Councillor Dryber, have you got a seconder? Councillor Justy. Are you second Councillor Dryber's motion? Right, so let's get this clear.
Actually, the first competent is actually Ivor's, because that's the motion. The amendment is to allow.
Thank you for that, Andy. Yes, the first motion would be Councillor Hislop, seconded by Councillor McKee, and the amendment would be Councillor Dryber, seconded by Councillor Justy. Is that correct? I've got you, Councillor Blake first, and then I'll...
It's just a point of clarification. I understand that Councillor McKee's now seconding the motion. Is it still the agreement that the inclusion of the rear door, not just the hip roof, and also the rear door?
Is that your agreement, Councillor McKee?
I'm quite comfortable with that, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McClellan, same question. Okay, thank you. Tracy, could you please take us through what the motion and amendment was?
Thanks, Chair. The motion is proposed by Councillor Hislop, seconded by Councillor McKee, to refuse the application as the gable face on the rear is imposing and should maintain the original permission that was granted, as this will be less imposing on the neighbouring properties. And this includes removal of the rear door And the amendment is proposed by Councillor Driver, seconded by Councillor Giusti, to approve, subject to the conditions, with the amendment to the condition to make it a solid fence.
Thank you. We'll just go to the vote now.
Thank you. Chairman?
Amendment.
Councillor Blake?
Motion.
Councillor Crothers?
Amendment.
Councillor Driver?
Amendment.
Councillor Drysdale? Councillor Fairbairn?
Amendment.
Councillor Ferguson?
Motion.
Councillor Giusti?
Amendment.
Councillor Hislop? Councillor McClelland?
Sorry, amendment.
Councillor McComb?
Amendment.
Councillor McKee?
Motion.
Councillor Martin? And Councillor Young.
Motion.
Could you please give us the result of that?
There's a equality of votes. Chairman, would you like to use your casting vote?
I will use my casting vote amendment.
Thank you. The amendment carries. So the application is approved, subject to the conditions in the report, with the amendment to the condition to include a solid fence.
Thank you very much, Tracy. We now move on to agenda item number 5, agricultural feed adjacent to the A713 south of CARSPHAIRN, planning application for the formation of laydown area to facilitate the construction, operation and decommissioning of Windy Rig Wind Farm. Application is 19/0938/full. This is, hang on, I've got my, sorry, it's, I'm just looking for the page number here. The recommendation is approved subject to conditions, and here to give his report is Andrew Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the application site, which is shown in red on the slide, it's situated on the northern side of the A713, around about 100 metres to the east of CARSPHAIRN. I'll just show you some photographs of the site. So the application site is situated, if you can just see the white road sign in the distance, it's situated between that and where the embankment is at the side of the road. So this is exiting CARSPHAIRN. The application, this is looking towards the site and also CARSPHAIRN. So the site's on the right hand side where the grass embankment is, and in the background you've got the hills of Curran of Portmark, which I think I've referred to in the committee report. So that's the application site to the right of the road sign, and that's the area to the left. This is on the approach into CARSPHAIRN, so this highlights the location and where the parish church is, which the Community Council and representatives have referred to. And this is taken from a property called Cairn Garrick, which is looking towards the site, so which is slightly elevated up from the road. So you'll see the application site. You could just about see the white road sign, and the application site situated around about there. So this is the proposed site layout. So what is proposed is effectively forming type 1 material, which is stone, as the hard standing for the site. There'd be two areas where cranes would be sited. I'll show you the details of that in a second. A road transition at the front of the site, and also you can see where an embankment to go into the existing land levels is proposed. So the crane itself is on a movable HGV vehicle. And in terms of site drainage, what is proposed is you can see a blue hashed line around the back of the site. That's to capture surface water from the adjoining fields. And the red line is effectively rerouting an existing roadside ditch around the back of the site, which would then discharge and join into the existing drain and then discharge under the road into the field as the existing situation. Following officer request for further details, it's actually proposed to, once the construction of the wind farm is complete, to partially restore the site by way of grass seeding and bulb planting, and this illustrates initial proposals of this. Some cross sections, and that's not really showing up very well. Effectively, the green line shows what is the existing land levels, and just beneath that you can see the proposed land levels. So this is looking west to east. Effectively, if you're looking at the site from the road, is what that cross section is showing. And this is showing it through the depth of the site, so you can see in green the existing embankment, and effectively it would result in the existing road embankment with a new one formed around the back of the site. And a photo montage has been submitted to actually show a visual illustration of the development, so you can see existing on the above and after the site's been partially restored beneath. So in terms of how this proposed area is to operate, effectively what will happen is turbines for the Windy Rig wind farm would be delivered to the site on, I could say, normal transport methods for the turbine blades. They would be delivered to the site, and from there it's proposed to be transported onto what's called a blade adapter, and it allows the turbines to be transported at a different angle, and the whole point of the proposal is so that this would result in less accommodation works to the surrounding road network. So it would be offloaded from the HGVs that delivered it to the site, it would be stored, and then they would be then loaded onto the blade adapter. So the bottom slide shows it when it's delivered to the site. Then they would be stacked into the area. They can be stacked one on another, the turbine blades. Then they would be put onto the blade adapter and then taken to the site, to the wind farm site, I should say. So in conclusion, given the temporary nature of the development, which would then have partial restoration, it's considered any adverse landscape and visual impacts would be limited to the construction phase of the wind farm. Additional information which has been submitted throughout the course of the application has alleviated flood risk concerns to the satisfaction of the Council's flood risk management team, and it's considered that conditions that have been recommended would help to protect residential amenity, and particularly in terms of hours of operation of loading and unloading the turbine blade. So it's recommended the application is approved subject to the conditions.
Thank you very much for that, Andrew. Questions for the case officer, Councillor McKee.
Thanks, Chair. In reading this, I just about emptied my pen of ink, underlining, highlighting parts of this scheme. The first thing I've got to raise with you, the map you've sent us, it doesn't detail where the wind farm is. Now, you're 100 metres from CARSPHAIRN to put this thing in 8 kilometres from CARSPHAIRN. 100 yards from CARSPHAIRN and 8 kilometres from the wind farm. Could this not have been sited closer to the wind farm?
Andrew?
I would say not. The whole point of the proposal is, I think if I can go back to the location plan, the whole point of the proposal is for the blade adapter, which would deliver the turbine blades, to decrease the amount of accommodation works on the B729. So it's delivered to the site on the A713, and then it's effectively to assist the manoeuvrability of the turbine blades around the local road network. So that's the whole purpose of it, and that I'm assuming that's why that location has been proposed.
So what you're saying is that the road can accommodate that the vehicle delivering the blades in the first instance. The road past CARSPHAIRN can accommodate those roads. Where is the wind farm in relation to CARSPHAIRN?
Andrew?
It's to the northeast on the other side of the Kensmore of CARSPHAIRN. So it's actually accessed from, what's the Log Road? So it's, if you were to head west from Moniaive and follow the B729 until you cross the water of Ken, and then it's effectively on the other side of the Kensmore of CARSPHAIRN. So it's northeast. It's about, as the crow flies, it's about 8 kilometres northeast of CARSPHAIRN.
And really, that's my concern. My initial concern is the distance from the wind farm. And I suppose it's something we'll consider later on.
Yeah.
But thanks for your answer anyway.
Thank you, Councillor McKee. Councillor Hislop?
Thank you, Chair. It's with regard to condition 2, the 25 years. Now, maybe it's me being pedantic, I don't know, but this is for the commissioning and decommissioning of the site, the laydown area. And it says that it'll be 25 years that you have to start reseeding and whatever for this site. Now, if it's 25 years for the planning permission, you're not going to take down the turbines in a day and get them back in a way to get the thing. So should it be 25 years there? Because as soon as you start exporting the electricity off the last turbine, you then have to start decommissioning 25 years' time for this site, which would actually mean that as soon as the electricity stops, you should have the site decommissioned, but you haven't removed the turbines yet. Or am I reading that wrong?
Andrew?
The 25-year period is effectively to coincide with the approved period of the wind farm. So effectively thereafter, it's given a 3-year period for the whole site after the 25 years. There's then a 3-year period for it to be fully restored as per what it looks like now, effectively. No, so the 25 years is basically when it can be used for any maintenance with the wind farm, but then once the 25-year period for the wind farm has expired, effectively the 3-year period thereafter kicks in. Yeah, because obviously it would still be required, that area, to decommission of the wind farm.
Thank you for that. Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Andrew, for your presentation. I have a statement to make later on at the correct part in the proceedings. But in the meantime, Andrew, I'm a bit concerned. Could you clarify for me what the partial restoration will be after the 25 or 27 or 28 years? Thank you.
Andrew?
Yeah, that's fine. Effectively, I've referred to it as partial restoration because restoration of the site would, if it were to refer to it as restoration, it would be putting it back as it is now. So partial restoration is to try and make it clear that it's not going to remain as an area of hard standing. The area of hard standing is just there for the construction of the wind farm. It would then be partially restored to grassland with an embankment, effectively with the area, and then at the end of the 25 years, there would be a requirement for it to be restored in its entirety as it is at the moment. Hope that explains.
Sorry.
I'll bring David in just to add a bit more.
I think maybe just to make it clear, the intensive period is going to be during the construction phase. So that's when you'll just have it as fairly bare grade 1 surfacing. Once the wind farm has been constructed, they still need to have it so that both you can have repairs done to any turbines that fail, and then the final restoration period. But during that time, that's when it's going to be grassed over, so that that's why Andrew's saying partial restoration. It's not a full-blown restoration, because it can be used, but visually it is going to look not like it did during the construction phase, if that makes sense.
Do you want to come back in, Pauline?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for that, David. So the bunds will stay there after the 25 years, or will they be removed? Thank
Andrew?
you.
It would be proposed to be removed.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Chair. David has actually answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McComb.
Thanks, Chair. Andrew, I'm still somewhat puzzled by the method the blades are going to get from the hard standing area to the junction of the B729. Could you explain that again, please?
Andrew?
Just find a plan to see if we can. So it's from this area to where the B729, it would be on the blade adapter. So let's go to the operation sequence. So effectively here, the top slide shows the turbine blades then being transported onto the blade adapter, which would then take the blade to the application site. So the remaining section of the A713 and then onto the B729.
So the blade adapter is going to travel along 100, maybe 150 metres of the A713. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what speed does the blade adapter move at?
I don't know actually. But the applicant is here, may be able to answer that question.
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Young.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So, after that explanation, which I fully appreciate, am I right in saying that this will remain an area of hard standing for approximately 28 years? Because there's no obligation to immediately return it to its natural state under these recommendations during that period.
Andrew?
No, it's to be, for the 25-year period, it's proposed to be grassed over as per that, what's an illustrative landscaping plan at this stage, because it's not fully worked up. So I think it's condition 5, recommended condition 5C is requiring further detailed landscaping scheme. This is the initial start of it. Effectively, it's proposed to grass over the site, so the arid hard standing would be taken away, or would be grassed over as per that slide. But the applicant's looking at further details in terms of what shrub planting to put down on the embankment, so that's why there's a recommended condition.
Thank you. If there's no more questions for the case officer, we have one speaker on this. Stuart Davidson, would you like to come forward, please? You will have 3 minutes to put your case. I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds to go, just to wind up your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. My name's Stuart Davidson, and I've worked on Windy Rig for over 5 years. Windy Rig Wind Farm was consented by Dumfries and Galloway Council Planning Committee in 2018. We've since secured a route to market in what is a challenging subsidy-free regime for onshore wind, and this route will allow Windy Rig to become operational by early 2021. The development in front of you today is required to deliver the wind farm within this timescale and for it to meet its grid connection date in 2021. Considerable technical environmental work went into identifying a suitable location for the development and subsequently preparing the planning application. We've worked closely with the Council's planning, roads and flood risk teams to ensure the design and the use of the laydown area is appropriate. The report to committee summarises the detailed work undertaken to date and concludes that the proposal is compliant with the Council's development plan policies and recommends approval. We thank you for your time and we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Councillor Dryburgh and then Councillor McComb.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's just to answer the question earlier on why the laydown area of the blades couldn't be closer to the wind farm.
Yeah, as I think Andrew mentioned, the further upgrade works would be required along the B729 and then the C road to site. This is the closest location to the kind of first constraint on that route, which is actually just the B729 junction there, which is the location of the War Memorial. By using this, it means we don't have to do any upgrade works to that junction or further beyond on the route to site.
Thank you for that. Councillor McComb.
Thanks, Chair. Stuart, I asked a question about the blade adapter and the speed at which it would travel. I take it has this distance of just over 100 metres on the A713. How long is that likely to take?
likely to be about 5 minutes per blade, travelling from the blade adapter location on the A713 at the laydown area to the B729. All abnormal load deliveries would be agreed with Police Scotland and Transport Scotland in consultation as part of our traffic management plan, and we would apply for permits for those deliveries closer at the time.
So there is likely to be a considerable delay for traffic on that main road. Is that correct?
Just during those periods when the blade is transporting from the A713 to the B729, so it would be a course of a 5-minute period per blade across the 3-month period of the wind farm.
And how many blades are to be delivered?
36 over about a 3-month period.
Thank you for that. Councillor Carruthers.
I think Councillor Driver probably asked my question, so it's been answered. Thank you.
Okay, there's no more. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry,
I'm getting Driver and Drysdale mixed up. Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you, Chair. Just one. Well, it's easy. We look quite similar. One last question, which is probably
similar in name.
A daft laddie question here. May I ask you why? Did you look at alternative sites? Is this the only site, and is it because the blade lengths are longer than usual because they're larger turbines? Thank you.
Yeah, similar to the question a minute ago, we were conscious of the use of the A713, so we're looking for a site that's as close to the first constraint as possible. We looked at a number of locations. This one we felt was, given its kind of distance from any properties looking onto the site, out with the town of CARSPHAIRN and the very short proximity to the B road, we felt this was the most appropriate, because anything closer to the site, as I say, would still require remedial works at that first junction and then a number along the route. And the size of the blades are 57 metres, which when we initially looked at this application were 45 metres, but due to advancing technology and being able to make the wind farm more efficient without changing the tip height of the wind farm, the blades are longer now.
Final
question. Can I ask one question? So if there were the 45 metres, would you still need that site?
We haven't looked at it for that length. I would suspect so. There would still be upgrades required to at least the War Memorial Junction there and further beyond.
I'll take Councillor Hislop and then Councillor Dryborough. Next.
I don't know if we can get the picture up. It was the one where you had the adapter and showing the sort of blades moving on the road. That one. Now, if you look at the bottom picture there, looking from here, it's maybe the way it's shown in the camera. How does the adapter work? Does it shorten the blades or something? Because the one at the first, quite long, and then going round the corner, they're half the length.
Yeah. We also have myself as the planning consultant and Barry, our construction manager, here as well, so I'll introduce him for that question.
Good morning. Yes, so the blade adapter, as you can see on the left-hand side of the picture, is the blade laid flat. And then as it gets to the bend, they can elevate the blade up to 60 degrees up in the air and maneuver around the bend. It's taking down the walls, taking down shrubbery, all the impacts of that. And it can lower after the bend and continue on its way. So, yeah, that's the reason for it being short.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dryborough and then Councillor McKee.
Thanks very much, Chair. You may notice that I've got a keen interest in the war memorial that's actually there, and looking at this bend here, it's pretty close to either side of the road, the blade itself, and the junction beside the war memorial is quite a tight junction if you look at that particular thing. And have you considered, I mean, obviously there's potential there for damage if somebody goes a wee bit too far. I don't know what the speed of these things are or anything like that. But I just wanted to make sure that there is appropriate width and safety distance for the war memorial.
Stuart?
I'll take that one. Yeah, at the war memorial, it is restricted, and yes, we do intend elevating the blade at that point, so we'll avoid knocking having to take down any of the walls or anything like that. I do think there is a bit more room there than you think, because the walls after the junction, as you head east along the B729, there's quite a wide verge on the road, so you can get around that junction with, I suppose you're not going to go close to the war memorial at all.
So there's basically elevators on the machine that's taking the blade around, and I do know the area well because we had a VC parade there a couple of years ago.
Yeah, bearing in mind we're here to determine the application of the laydown rather than the. Absolutely, I would agree with you there, but I think we're getting kind of bogged down in the nature of how things work. We're here to determine an application on a laydown site. But I'll let you answer that if you want.
I suppose, sorry, I'll take that one. I suppose the speed is about 10 kilometers an hour when it's elevated, and there's hydraulic systems on the actual blade adapter itself just to elevate it up in the air. So, and it's certified for road use and all that thing. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Councillor McKee.
I think basically what you're saying is the reason you've gone for that site is because of the war memorial and he can't get closer to the wind farm access. How far is the wind farm access from the proposed site here?
It's along the public road. It's 12 kilometres along the road, along the B729 and the C road, C35S.
Another question about how much soil are you moving on that proposed site?
So there's about 8,000 metres cubed. However, in terms of traffic volumes, that's almost neutral, as some of that material is going to be used on the wind farm. So it wouldn't be material additional that we would need to move. It's a material we'd be bringing into the wind farm anyway, and will be used to partly restore the borrow pits and partly for the construction of the wind farm access tracks.
Thank you very much, Councillor McClelland.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I've got 2 points here. The first is in reference to external lighting. I would imagine that this area being dark skies, it will be the local inhabitants will be very interested as to what extent any lighting could form. And once the initial delivery takes place, there will be maintenance requirements as the project goes through its 25-year duration. So at that time, I'm just looking to see if the intent is that maintenance won't be a 24-hour, 24/7 process, and the locals will be taken into account, and if that will, probably back to an officer, if that will be conditional. But my second question, from an environmental impact, I noticed that there's 2 large cranes on the site, and these large cranes could be there for a duration of 3 months. They'll need fueling. What are the provisions to ensure that if there's any spillages of fuel, that these spillages don't get into the watercourse? I don't see anything with that regard from any of the SEPA consultation or yourselves. So could you maybe give me some clarity on that, please?
Stuart. In relation to your first point on lighting and traffic management, they're both points that we've been discussing with the roads department and the planning department on, and we have conditions in place relating to when we can use the blade adapter on, or proposed on the report, is when we can use the blade adapter, and we have to provide a lighting arrangement as well. We intend to have the lights so they're almost cowled and there's no horizontal spillage, so they're just facing down, so it's only for the use on site. And in terms of throughout the duration of the wind farm, the only time that the laydown area would be used is if we have to replace a blade. So it's not like it's going to be regular maintenance. It's unusual occurrences, such as if there was a lightning strike in which we would need to replace a blade or something like that. So it's unlikely to be regular use at all throughout the duration of the wind farm. And if it is, those conditions proposed by the planning officer related to the times in which we can load and unload between, I think it's 10:30 and 7 o'clock at night. 10:30 at night and 7 o'clock in the morning. In relation to the fuel point, maybe defer to Barry on that.
Yeah. Just in relation to the cranes, as you see, they're mobile cranes, so they will be moving to offload the blade at the other end as well. So, they won't be parked on that site at night, and they can be refueled back on the wind farm where all those other the facilities are there for doing that.
Thank you very much for that. You want to come back in, Henry?
Yeah. So to give you clarity then, there'll be no fuel storage or filling of fuels on the site in question. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Thank you. We'll need to move this on a wee bit. Final question I'll take from Councillor Young.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Appreciate that. You've obviously selected a site which is the most appropriate site for the benefit of the contractors between CARSPHAIRN and the junction of the B729. How much work was done investigating other sites in the proximity, like, for instance, just across from that junction or on the other side of the junction? How much investigative work was done surveying other possible sites?
We looked at a number of sites as part of this, including across the road. When we talk about the location close to the B729, we're also conscious that we have to make sure that the traffic management on the A713 is appropriate as well, thinking about for the delivery of blades. But one of the, I suppose, the benefits of this location is we've worked closely with the flood team to ensure it can be designed appropriately without increasing flood risk. The site across the road we felt was more sensitive for increasing potential flood risk in that area, and was one we initially looked at prior to looking at this location.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Gentlemen, if you'd like to resume your seats. Thank you. Members, we're now in session. Councillor Dryburgh.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'm pleased with the opportunity to question the applicant on that. Listening to what's been said, I can see no reason other than to approve, subject to the conditions that are in the report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to raise my concerns regarding the laydown area in the small but beautiful village of CARSPHAIRN set in the Galloway Hills. I do know it well as it's in my ward and I travel up and down regularly to Ayrshire. The site is alarmingly close to this small village and will therefore have an adverse effect on the approach and its rural character. Plus, it will also impact on the church as it is a listed building. This village has already lost their pub, they've had floods the last 3 years, they've lost their school recently, and they also heavily rely on tourism, mainly walkers, their small shop and their heritage centre to survive. There may be alternative routes to access for the construction of the wind farm and many other areas away from the village for the laydown area. To this end, I would strongly recommend or request a site visit to determine the alarmingly close proximity to the village and the detrimental effects that it may have on this small community. Thank you.
So you're putting down a motion for a site visit? Well, we've got a site visit and a seconder. Members in agreement?
No.
John?
No. An amendment, we don't have a site visit, we've got enough information here.
So you've got enough information in front of you to determine this application today. Are you a seconder for Councillor Dryburgh? No. Okay, we have... so the motion will be... Let's get this right this time. The motion will be Councillor Drysdale with Councillor Carruthers as a seconder. Andy?
We have to vote on where we're having the site visit first, and then if we have enough information to do it today.
Absolutely. So we've got a motion for a site visit, which is Councillor Drysdale, and seconded by Ian Carruthers, and a motion, amendment to determine the application as today. And who's putting that forward? So John's putting it forward, and the seconder, John? Councillor Dryburgh. Is that correct? Okay, so we'll go to that vote.
Thank you, Chair. I'll not repeat all that again. So, Chairman?
Sorry, let me get this right.
The motions proposed by Councillor Drysdale, seconded by Councillor Carruthers to defer consideration of the application for a site visit. Amendment by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Dryburgh to determine the application today. Chairman?
Amendment.
Councillor Blake?
Motion.
Councillor Carruthers?
Motion.
Councillor Dryburgh?
Amendment.
Councillor Drysdale?
Motion.
Councillor Fairbairn?
Motion.
Councillor Ferguson?
Amendment.
Councillor Giusty?
Motion.
Councillor Hislop? Councillor McClelland?
Amendment.
Councillor McComb,
Motion.
Councillor McKee,
Amendment.
Councillor Martin,
Amendment.
and Councillor Young.
Amendment.
Why me? Where's Jim when you need him? Anyway.
Chairman, would you like to use your casting vote?
Yeah, the amendment.
Amendment. Application, there's no site visit, and application will be determined today.
Thank you. Members, Archie?
Chair, sorry to interrupt, Archie. Could we have the map up on the screen, please?
Andrew?
See, we are determining this today. I would suggest we go to the recommendations to approve subject to the conditions in the report.
Second that.
Okay. Anybody else? No. So, agreement?
I'd move that we reject this.
Councillor McKee?
I move that we reject this. I think if we could do a discussion, I've marked off a lot in here, and what's been said regarding the access for the road vehicles, we should maybe be looking at why can they not alter the access onto the road at the other side, the yellow road, which I think they were talking about, the B729, why can they not alter that to take the big vehicles and travel that way rather than...
We're here to determine what's in the application at the moment. We're not here to make decisions whether it should be here, there or everywhere else. It's on the application and this is what we're determining today. Yeah, Ian?
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I support Councillor McKee in regards to, if we got a site visit, we would have answered a lot of questions for me. I'm 99% sure I actually supported the original proposal. Certainly not against in any way, shape or form that, but I mean, I think the close proximity, paragraph 2 within the actual report outlines it very clearly for me. It certainly never made my mind up. I would have got a lot of questions answered with a site visit that I haven't been able to. So the information that I've, through the report and been made aware of today, I still feel there's potentially other options because of the impact that's quite clearly outlined within the report. It's got to have on the close proximity to CARSPHAIRN. I think there will be other options, maybe a bit more expensive, but for the term, and I do feel very strongly that it shouldn't be a partial restoration, it would be a full restoration, because this will have a 25-year lifespan, but it may well go on for 50, 75, 100.
We're here to determine this application today. We're not here to change our mind on where the location or anything. Please don't interrupt Ian when I've taken over the chair here.
The Chairman,
we've got a motion at the moment by Councillor Dryborough, seconded by Councillor Martin, to go with the recommendations. Now, I'm not sure even if I heard if Councillor McKee actually put an amendment in. I know you said that you wanted to second that, but I'm not even sure if Councillor McKee actually put that.
Right, I would move an amendment that we refuse this application.
Right, so we've got the motion.
It's an inappropriate citing of this application.
I'm going to let David come in here.
Chair, it was really just to tease out why Councillor McKee was actually putting it forward for refusal, because obviously just refuse isn't sufficient. So am I understanding it correctly? You're saying that it's the citing of the proposal would have an adverse effect on the setting and amenity of CARSPHAIRN? Okay.
Chairman, can I come back in just to... So I did second that, and I was outlining the reasons why I was supporting the actual, the motion or the amendment, whatever, the proposal, and I was referring to paragraph 2 in particular, and I align myself to the comments here. David's already picked up on them, so has Councillor McKee, and I do get 3 minutes when I start. You're allowed to eat through standing orders, you do get 3 minutes, Chairman. So you actually interrupted me, so I would align myself to them comments in particular.
Okay, so we've got a motion and an amendment. Tracy, you want to take us through that, please?
Thank you, Chair. I have a motion proposed by Councillor Dryborough, seconded by Councillor Martin, to approve application as per the report and the conditions, and an amendment proposed by Councillor McKee, seconded by Councillor Crothers, to refuse the application on the grounds that this proposal is an inappropriate siting at this location and the negative impacts on amenity of CARSPHAIRN.
Okay, we'll go to the vote.
The Chairman.
Motion.
Councillor Blake.
Amendment.
Councillor Crothers.
Amendment.
Councillor Dryborough.
Motion.
Councillor Drysdale.
Amendment.
Councillor Fairbairn.
Amendment.
Councillor Ferguson.
Motion.
Councillor Giusti.
Motion.
Councillor Hislop. Councillor McClellan.
Motion.
Councillor McComb.
Amendment.
Councillor McKee.
Sorry, amendment.
Councillor Martin.
Motion.
Councillor Young.
Motion.
Well, we know where this is going, don't we?
Chairman, would you like to use your casting vote
I
again?
will use my casting vote in motion.
Thank you. Application is approved as per the report, subject to the conditions.
Thank you for that, Tracy. We will now move on to item 6, which is the proposed ARECLEOCH wind farm extension approximately 3 kilometres southwest of BARRHILL, South Ayrshire. Consultation regarding an application made under Section 36 of the Electricity Act 1989 for the proposed extension to ARECLEOCH wind farm, brackets 13 wind turbines, maximum height of 200 metres, within authority area of South Ayrshire. The planning number is 19/1125/S36, and here to give his presentation is Chris Mattia. Chris, would you like to take us through your presentation?
Thank you very much, Chair. The application is in front of members today, as all consultations made to the Council for applications under Section 36 of the Electricity Act fall under the scheme of delegation for members to make a decision on. Just before we crack on with this, on page 43 of your committee papers, the committee location plan is slightly inaccurate. It's not quite reflected on the plan here, but if you look where the site entrance is, it's showing to the left of a sort of black line, which is the boundary between Dumfries and Galloway and South Ayrshire, and it's actually showing just into the South Ayrshire side. But in fairness, it is quite difficult to plot maps out on the GIS to this kind of large scale. So as you can see from the papers, we have received a consultation from the Scottish Government's Energy Consents Unit. They've received an application for an extension to ARECLEOCH wind farm, which is currently operational, and that was for 13 wind turbines up to 200 metres to blade tip. The site, as you can see from the location plan, is more or less 99% of it located within the South Ayrshire Council area. The road entrance or the southern road entrance, there's two. You can see there's one just to the northwest of BARRHILL. So the entrance for the AILs, that is the blades, the nacelles, and the turbine tower sections, the entrance for that is in Dumfries and Galloway, and is currently utilising the Kilgalloway wind farm access, which we'll see from the photographs in a moment. So if you can kind of look at this slightly wider picture, the entrance is coming in off the A714. In fact, just where it says A714, the site entrance is shown in there. So you can see the bulk of Kilgalloway wind farm, and then ARECLEOCH just to the northwest. And there is a scheme that was granted permission in between the two, where the road down to New Luce is at Chermorry, so it kind of fills in the gap there. So you can see where the turbines are located for ARECLEOCH, and it's roughly 11 kilometres from the nearest turbine to the Dumfries and Galloway sort of administrative boundary. Here you can see just a quick layout of the site. So really the main issue for us is the access. The wind farm is so far into South Ayrshire that it doesn't really pose us a great deal of concern. So here's the Kilgalloway AIL entrance. So it already exists. It's been utilised for large-scale wind farm traffic. The boundary is just out of shot to the right of this picture at Wee Bridge. That just shows you the access track over the bridge, a bit further into the site, and that's just looking down from the bridge on the A714. So looking at the AIL deliveries for the wind farm, they haven't been confirmed as of yet. The component parts are coming in by boat, either to a port in Glasgow or Cairnryan, but the final detail of that hasn't been confirmed as yet. What we have recommended and what the developer was looking to do, as is standard with pretty much all wind farms, is to produce a traffic management plan, which would detail how the construction traffic and, in this case, the AIL deliveries would come into site. They are recommending consultation with my colleagues in Roads and with Transport Scotland as well. So for that reason, we've included that in our list of conditions, which, for the reasons outlined in the report, we are recommending that we raise no objections with the Scottish Government for this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the case officer? No. There's no speakers on this item, so members will now in session. Archie?
Agree with the recommendations, Chair.
Unanimously. Thank you. Tracy, would you just repeat back what the position was?
Members have agreed to raise no objections to the application.
Thank you very much for that, Tracy. We now move on to item number 7. This is land at Harestanes substation, Harestanes Wind Farm A, consultation regarding an application made under Section 36 of the Electricity Act 1989 for battery energy storage facility. Planning application number is 19/1066/S36, and here to give a presentation is Claire Eckstein. Claire, would you take members through your presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. Right, obviously this is for the consultation under the Section 36 for a battery energy storage facility on the Harestanes wind farm. This shows the location of the site within the Forest of A. It's about 6.7 kilometres to the west of the A701. I've also marked where the access is off the A701, close to Burrants Bridge. This has been confirmed that this will be the access that the applicants will be using. So this shows the application site, and then I've got an aerial photograph. So it will be next to the substation, compound offices, and the application is to the right, on the right-hand side of the photograph. And there's an existing suds pond, which will be utilised as well. So just going through the photographs, this is the substation site compound on the western boundary, and then we're just panning right from the previous photograph. And right again, as you can see, it's within the wooded area with the wind turbines behind, part of the Harestanes. And then this is the southern boundary with the access of the forestry track and wind farm tracks. So this is the southeastern boundary looking across the site from the substation fencing. And again, panning left from the previous. And this is the western boundary showing the existing substation fencing. And again, just to the left again. And this is the photograph just behind the substation, and this is where the connections to the grid will be made underground. So I'll just quickly go through the location plan. And then this is the block plan. This shows the building to be located east of the substation, and it would have a compound fence and transformer compound and fencing around about. This shows the floor plan of the building, which, as noted in paragraph 1.5, sort of has a battery storage and associated sort of control facilities. And this just shows the elevations of the building, which will be of measuring 34 metres by 44.5 metres and 6.8 metres high. It will be profile sheeting. As noted in the report, the exact colour hasn't yet been confirmed, so we've recommended a condition be added, which is noted in paragraph 5.1. So this proposal is considered to be compliant with the local development plan, and the recommendation is to raise no objection to Scottish ministers with the condition as noted.
Thank you very much, Claire. Any members got any questions for the case officer? Archie and then Dave McKee.
Thanks very much here. I'm just looking at Claire about the colour of the cladding, and obviously in these types of areas, green type cladding would be most appropriate, I think. So if we could ask for that, then that would be useful.
David?
Ultimately, this is a matter for the Scottish ministers as to whether or not they would attach such a condition, but we're recommending that. We've left it open, but funnily enough, green isn't always the best colour, because if you get the wrong type of green, if it's a dark green, it probably would be. So yes, I agree. That's what we want to do.
Can I just pick David up there, because green isn't always the best colour. It depends what you're talking about, David. If it's football, it's a different matter.
I think we'll stick to planning matters, Archie. Dave McKee?
There is a nice yellow going about, but is this, what's the kind of lifespan of these batteries? And is it the intention to get feed in from other stations, wind farm stations?
My understanding is that they're creating, the proposal now is to create the battery storage facilities as close as possible to wind farms. So obviously when the wind farm is generating, wind's blowing and generating, then it'll store up in the batteries, and then it feeds into the national grid when obviously the wind isn't blowing, but they still require the energy. So as I've noted in the report, I think there's one just below paragraph 1.3 that the Whiteley wind farm is the sort of first one that Scottish Power Renewables, and that'll probably be the pilot project for this, and then obviously they'll advance the technology, and this is the next one on stream.
I think Archie can clarify that.
Yes. What happens normally is when wind turbines are taken off, because there's a lull in energy requirement, the wind turbine would continue and the energy would be stored to the battery to be used at a later time of the day, usually when things like Coronation Street are on and things like that, so people go for a cup of tea at 7:30 as opposed to that type of thing. So the idea would be that the energy would be stored in the battery to be used at a later time in that day, David. There's a lot of times when you'll see that wind farms are not actually operating, and it's because the grid is actually restricting them from being used, and they actually get paid for not actually using them. So that's the reason why.
Does that help clarify a few things, David?
Well, actually, what he's just mentioned is I didn't know about, because there are companies going about nowadays seeking planning permission to build battery accommodation all over the country. So it's nothing new. Thanks for that answer anyway.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks very much. Just a couple of things. Actually, greens, I would suggest actually the natural colour there. That's only because of the farming of conifers that makes maybe green, because the original there would be probably, as Jock said, a mixture of green, gold, and God knows all what. So I would leave that to the experts. And as for Coronation Street, rather than go and boil a kettle, I actually go and watch a telly in their room, because that actually uses less electricity. But my serious question here is, I'm actually wondering why, and because we have to commend this, because this is the stories that generated electricity so it can be used at a better time. Why has this never been a condition on wind farms that they have one of these? Are we able to, it's a throwing question, it doesn't affect today, but I'd be really interested in finding out.
Yeah, it's a good question, Andy. I'll bring David in, he'll maybe explain it.
It is a very good question. As far as I know, it's because technology has only just come along now to be able to store the capacity that they need. But it's entirely the way forward. It will smooth out peaks and troughs, just as was alluded to. So from that side of things, I think it can only be commended.
Thank you. Ivor?
Chair, is it going to be these, is it lithium batteries they call them? Because my understanding they're not environmentally friendly, and with us signing this climate emergency, should we be supporting this?
I don't think we're here to discuss what the process of batteries are. I mean, technology does move, but we're here to consider this application. So if there's no more questions for the case officer members, we're now in session. Archie?
Agree with the recommendation, Chair.
That unanimous. Tracy, take us through the members' decision.
Thank you, Chair. Members have agreed to raise no objections with the recommended condition attached.
Can we actually commend?
Yeah, I think we should. I mean, this is obviously a step forward. So commend to who though, Andy? Just commend it.
Well,
we
Chair,
recognise.
If it helps, Chair, then
yeah,
what we are doing is making a comment on the consultation to the Scottish ministers. So there's no problem in us responding, basically saying that the planning committee were supportive and commended the use of this.
Thank you very much. Right, we now move on to application item 8 on the agenda, application for ERROLSTON Farm GRETNA, planning application for erection of 2 milking units with the adjoining tank room, formation of slurry lagoon and silage pit and associated works. The application number is 19/0880/full, and to give the presentation is Robert. Robert, will you take members through your presentation, please?
Certainly, thank you, Chair. I'm covering for Carla Livingston today, who doesn't work on a Thursday as part of our working pattern. So rather than have her come in on a non-working day, I've just decided to step into the breach. I have been involved in this case at the pre-application stage, and the report covers that to a certain degree. The application site itself is located about 2 kilometres to the north of Springfield near Gretna. The farm is located to the east of the C65A public road. It's accessed off a private track that serves both ERROLSTON Farm and Aitchison's Bank Farm. So what you're looking at in the location plan, you can see the location of the proposed silage pit, 2 milking units and tank room, and the slurry lagoon, obviously quite significant and sizable agricultural development. The aerial view of the site shows the mature woodland at Goldesley Wood to the north of the site and Corner Wood to the east of the site. You can see that, the broadly triangular area there. The block plan shows the scale of the development. It's obviously significant, it's large. The application, as you will have noted, is in front of you because it constitutes major development in terms of the Planning Act by virtue of its size primarily. So you've got a slurry lagoon, 2 large milking units in a tank room and a silage pit all under one application. Turning to the elevations, the milking units would essentially be 2 long sheds with pitched roofs. They'd be parallel to each other. The tank room would be positioned between the 2. So you can see that on plan form and elevation form 2. The slurry lagoon, these are cross sections of it, would measure 86 metres by 84 metres. The outer earth bank would be approximately 2 metres high that you can see there. That shows the level of excavation and level change. In terms of footprint, this is the slurry lagoon. Quite sizable. It would be accessed by 2 6-metre wide lockable gates that are indicated in the top centre of the plan you see in front of you here.
and you've got a safety fence also. Surrounded by 2 metre high child-proof security fence constructed in line with industry safety standards. ERROLSTON cottages to the east of the lagoon are part of ERROLSTON Farm. The nearest neighbouring dwelling that is not part of the farm is the farmhouse at Aitchison's Bank Farm. That's approximately 350 metres to the west of this proposed slurry lagoon. Silage pit floor plan and elevation, it would be adjacent to the existing steading and it would be approximately 71 metres long by 28 metres wide. Moving to actual photographs now, this is taken from Blacksyke Bridge, which is the highest point within the area surrounding the farm. ERROLSTON House, the farmhouse, is the white dwelling in the centre of the photo. You can see just behind that tree. The existing steading buildings are located to the right of this, so you can see them there, the kind of grey ones in front of the woodland. Travelling north along the C65A public road, this is looking east towards ERROLSTON. You can see views of the farm are obscured by the existing hedgerow. The dwelling to the left of the telegraph pole is Beechwood, that is approximately 500 metres to the west of ERROLSTON Farm itself. This is the view. You can see the existing steading. This is looking in a southwesterly direction from the access roads. There's obviously quite considerable presence on the site already. And you have the site of the proposed milking units, again in close quarters from the public road. This is looking north from the existing steading. This is now looking northeast from the steading towards the site of the proposed slurry lagoon. And this is the site of the proposed slurry lagoon itself. You've got quite strong boundary patterns, an element of screening from the hedging and the trees in the locality. This is the access track and mature trees that run to the northeast of the proposed slurry lagoon. And then you've got a picture of ERROLSTON cottages, which have already been mentioned in the presentation and the report. This is a view looking east from the existing steading towards the site of the silage pit. And then again, the site of the silage pit itself. So it's up against the boundaries of existing fields. It's up against woodlands, so there's an element of screening and landscape integration there. This is looking west towards the C65A public road. You can see that on the left-hand side from the steading. And those are all the pictures. I'm happy to answer members' questions.
Thank you for that, Robert. I'll take Councillor Driver and then Councillor McComb.
Robert, can you go back to the first picture? And it's just for clarity so members know exactly where it is. And the first picture with the highest point in the site. There, yeah. That, just so members are aware, that's actually Quinton's Hill siding, where the 7th Battalion, 5th, 7th Battalion Royal Scots had the worst rail disaster ever in the UK in 2015. I'm aware of this application, and I think the individual who's brought it forward was very supportive of what we did with Quinton's Hill there in 2015. I've got no further questions, but it was just for clarity for members so they knew where it was.
Thank you, Archie. Councillor McComb.
Thanks, Chair. I take it there is no requirement to remove mature woodland.
Robert.
That's correct. I'm just trying to find the slide that shows this best. It's probably a combination of the location plan here and the aerial view. So you've got the two areas of woodland, the roughly triangular area there on the right, and then the area above it. And you can see in the location plan that those remain intact. So they're not eroded, if you like, by part of this development at all.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Chair. The applications for 2 milking units, are the cows going to be permanently located within these units?
Robert.
Off the top of my head, I don't know the answer to that question.
Any more questions for the case officer? Members, we're now in session. Councillor Dryburgh.
Agree with the recommendations, Chair.
Tracy, could you take us through what the members' decisions was?
Thank you, Chair. Members have approved the application unconditionally.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. We'll now move on to agenda item number 9, which is land at IRONGRAY Road, Dumfries. planning application for formation of HARESTANDING for use as Class 6 storage and distribution with landscaping, BUND, access and associated works. The planning application is 19/1077/full, and to give the presentation is Chris Mattia. Chris, could you take us through the presentation, please?
Thanks very much, Chair. The application is in front of members today by virtue of it being major development under the hierarchy of development regulations. So as we can see, the application site is located on the edge of the Dumfries settlement, and it covers an area approximately 4.21 hectares or so. There's currently a split use to the site. The sort of southern part of the site is currently being used for an industrial purpose. It's the Nordic Tiles depot and facility, and just beyond that is an area of agricultural land. So the existing site layout, just kind of you can see the sort of the dual nature of the site there. So the access from Irongray Road is down the bottom. You can see the existing factory building there in the east of the site. The land next door to the site that they're looking to extend out into, as you can see, slopes down quite sharply, as you can see from the contour lines there, but it does flatten out towards the getting towards the Glasgow Road and the A76. Moving on, so there's the proposed layout. Now, as you can see, there's a sort of yellow box attached to the end of the Nordic depot there. That is an extension to the existing factory. It doesn't form part of this application because they are utilising their permitted development rights under Class 23 of the GPDO, so they're extending the factory to create more space inside, and therefore the existing storage yard needs to be relocated further to the west. As you'll see from some of the photographs further on in the presentation, there is a demand for storage from third parties on the site as well, and there were various other sort of companies using the area for storage as well. You can see as well the formation of a landscaping bund around the sort of the new part of the site in the west there. So looking at I've got a cross-section plan of the site here. Unfortunately, I've had to split it into 3 sections because it was just too long to fit into the one slide. But you can see from the cross-section there where the existing ground profile is, and you can see a cross-section, excuse me, of the proposed bund. You can see that there's something called an improved swale sitting just next to the bund. As part of the application process, SEPA were consulted on that, and they initially objected to the application on a lack of information on flood risk and drainage. Obviously, it's a sloping site, so the potential is for surface water to run down. So the inclusion of a swale that sort of runs all the way along the bottom of the bund and then into the existing drainage was proposed, and SEPA removed their objection to that. So this is just running back up the hill towards Irongray Road, as you can see there. With that one, there is a fence proposed along the southern boundary of the site. So you'll see in a second from the pictures where the fence is proposed. It's a fairly standard 1.8 metre high mesh fence. It's normally green. Just for those of you who are interested in colours, for that one. Here's the current road access. As you can see, it leads into Nordic Tires. Roads were consulted, and they're happy that the existing junction access is suitable for what they're looking for. It's just a view back down Irongray Road. So this is looking across the site now. The sort of the car park in front, the forefront of the picture doesn't actually form part of the application site. That's a separate site. So what you're looking at is the storage yard in the distance, just in front of the trees. So you can see there's various storage containers and things in there. And it was quite a broad day when I went out on site, so that was nice. So the next couple of pictures illustrate just the drop in the land levels from Irongray Road down to the A76. You can kind of see it in this one. That's probably a better illustration of how the site slips down. So the area closest to us, if you will, the sort of the higher part of the site, is excluded from this application and is just being retained for agricultural use, and the fence is going to kind of come across the sort of the middle part of the site there. That's from the very bottom of the site, so it kind of gives you a good indication of where the site sort of slopes up. As I say, the higher part of the site is being kept, and the sort of the buildings and what have you there. That's the cattery just on Irongray Road. This is along the southern boundary, so along here is where the landscaping bund and swale is proposed. That's looking back down from the sort of the very southernmost point of the site. So that low point that you can see there is excluded from the application, and you can just see up to Newbridge there as well. Into the existing yard, this is taken in front of the Nordic Tiles building, so it just shows the yard as it exists just now. That's the factory building to the right, and that's going to be where the extension to the building is going to be located. As you can see, there's a belt of mature trees runs along the site to the rear and to the east as well, so it's pretty well screened from the main road. Just a bit more detail of the existing yard there. That's the current site boundary. So it's the sort of the concrete posts with the barbed wire and a line of hedgerow across there. So it is proposed to kind of go through there into the area beyond. And for the reasons outlined in the report, we're recommending this one for approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Chris. Members got any questions for the case officer, Andy?
Good morning, Chris. Thanks. The LDP2, I'm getting part of it as brownfield, the proposed site. What's the designation of the other part?
Chris?
Yes, you're right. The part of the site that contains the industrial building is zoned for business and industrial use, and the part of the site that the extension is going into it's not allocated for anything. So it is general. It's agricultural land is what we would say it would be.
I think, can I come back in, John? I think that's my problem here is if we're going to be building an industrial thing on what is now, at this moment in time, classed as agricultural land, is it quality, or are we creating a precedent here?
Chris? In terms of the actual quality, policy NE 13 on agricultural soil kind of covers that, where we would support or we wouldn't support development on agricultural land with a classification of 3.2 or better. Just for the benefit of members who might not know, we classify agricultural land or agricultural soil using a map that's supplied by the Macaulay Soil Institute. So the land is given a numerical grading, with 1 being the best and I think 10 being the worst. In this case, the part of the site, the sort of the part that's being kept, is classified as 2. So it's quality soil. The bit down the bottom falls into class 3. Now, class 3 is land that's capable of producing a moderate range of crops. It's further split into 3.1 and 3.2, and in this case, it lies in 3.2, which is land that produces like an average production of things like barley or grass or oats or what have you. But we can make an exception to that where the application kind of conforms to the wider spatial strategy more widely, and where there's no other alternative to that. There is a similar kind of precedent within the general industrial policy, because we're going out with an allocated industrial site. Normally we would only support industrial use, you know, within an allocated site, unless there was a good reason for it not to. The existing factory can't, you know, it's getting too cramped within the site, so there's no alternative for them but to extend out the way. I hope that kind of answers your question slightly.
Has that been helpful, Andy? Yeah. Was it helpful for you? If there's no more questions for the case officer, David?
Chair, actually if you get up that road now, Andy, you'll see there's a new garage been opened. I'm disappointed with the papers we've got here. It talks here about traffic statement and appendices June 2019. There's nothing here telling me what that included. And same with design and access statement, pre-application consultation. A lot of people around that area didn't seem to care anything about it. And just exactly what was agreed. It's a strange old world. What is supposed to be going on in there once this is developed? What's the hours of working and all that sort of thing? Because the residents need to know these things. They're not wanting to be disturbed all through the night just by big lorries turning and whatnot. I noticed there is some containers on waste wagons, that sort of thing down there now. And if that's being extended down closer to Newbridge, that could create a bit of a problem. But I was very disappointed in this report. As I say, there's a lot of information that there's headings, but there's no information underneath it.
Chris? That's it. Councillor McKee, that's the report. So.
It's a list of the accompanying documents, and what's underneath the subject headings is a summary of what's submitted. All the documentation's online, and I think just in the interest of being to the point, we wouldn't include, you know, reams and reams of reports and things in that. Otherwise, your committee reports would be, you could use them for doorstops, but we would always direct you to the online, to the portal where all the information is.
Chair, the one issue that I could do to know is traffic movement, because I've had words with roads already about a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit on that road. There's some cars come out of them accesses either side of the road, and they're halfway across the road before they stop. And I travel up and down that road. That's why I'm raising this issue, and I know what happens. And the speed are gone, it'd be better to get a 30-mile-an-hour limit. But the traffic movement back onto IRONGRAY Road is something that we could do to know, to see whether we could reduce the speed, get the speed limit extended.
It's in your papers that the Council Roads Office has no objections, but you can take out of that what you want.
I'd raise the issue of, we don't know what the traffic in and out is going to be, increasing traffic in that area, and whether we need to do a traffic count maybe and look at speed limits.
If there's no, you want to come back in? Yeah, okay.
Just on page 71, you mentioned before about the traffic statement. They did conduct traffic counts with this one. It's all in the statement which was online, and that was information that we gave to roads, and they were happy with the traffic counts and the proposed sort of trip generation that would be, because obviously you've got to expect an increase in the amount of vehicles coming in and out. So that formed part of roads no objection recommendation.
Councillor Ferguson.
Okay, thanks. Chris, you missed your chance. That we've got quality, not quantity here. I'd like to move the... okay, and I'm wanting a bright yellow shed, okay? No, but seriously, no, I think we should go with happy to go with the recommendations.
Yeah, we're not in session yet, but if nobody's got any more questions for the case officer, then members, we're now in session. Andy?
I'll not repeat Chris's remarks, he's already noted them, but I'm happy to go with the recommendations.
Members? Agreed? Okay, Tracy, can you let us know what the decision was?
Members have approved the application subject to the conditions in the report.
Thank you, Tracy. We now move on to agenda item 10, and this is the alterations including replacement of sandstone balls stroke columns and cleaning stroke maintenance of statue at the Earl of Galloway Monument, Victoria Street, Newton Stewart. The reference number is 19/1282/LBC, and the recommendation is approved subject to conditions. And David will take us through the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's a council-owned statue which is just beside the junction with the bridge in Newton Stewart. And as the photos will show, it has seen better days, unfortunately. It has been the subject to previous cleaning, which has not been very successful. It has actually probably increased the level of damage and erosion to it. You can see as well, running down the right-hand side, there's a lightning conductor that's been added to it as well. Been some graffiti to it in the past. Just moving round, that's the south elevation, the town side, and east elevation, north looking back into town. What this shows is some of the inscriptions have really got quite badly worn over time. You can't really read that in reality, never mind on the photo there. And the discoloration has come from previous cleanings, which have then exacerbated by probably beside its junction with the road. It's become quite dark in colour. And you can see some of the stonework. You've got the columns there either side are showing spalling. And that, if I can get this to work today, Tom, no, it's not going to do it, but you can see a sort of little reddish coloured mark. That's where the ornamental ball has fallen off over time, so that is going to be repaired. And you can see quite clearly the lightning conductor that's been put down the side rather unsympathetically. So all in all, it's something which we would support because it's going to repair a well-known local landmark in Newton Stewart.
Thank you very much. Questions for the case officer? Members, we're now in session. Agreed. Tracy, could you take us through the decision?
Members have approved the application subject to conditions as detailed in the report.
Thank you for that, Tracy. We now move on to agenda item 11, Quayside Port Street, ANNEXE, application for listed building consent for an installation of 2 access ladders and 4 timber fenders. Application number is 19/1436/LBC. A bit of deja vu here, I think, but we've got Lindsay Little to take us through the presentation. Lindsay.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a listed building consent application for the installation of 2 harbour access ladders and 4 timber fenders. The reason this application is before you today is because the applicant is Dumfries and Galloway Council. So the location plan shows the application site to the west side of ANNEXE, and the block plan shows the location of 2 existing ladders. This drawing shows details of the proposed ladders, fenders and fixings. The bottom left-hand drawing shows the elevation of the quay wall with the ladder and the fenders on either side. Take you through some photographs. So this is looking south from Port Street, and you can just barely see the existing ladders. This is ladder 1 as it exists. You can see it's fairly badly damaged and currently not in use. That's the same ladder on the side elevation. And this is ladder 2, which is slightly better condition and currently in use. And this is looking back from the south side back up towards Port Street. As noted in paragraph 4.1 of the report, this application is essentially a change of materials to those previously approved, and therefore the recommendation is to approve this application unconditionally.
Thank you, Lindsay. Members, questions to the case officer? Members, we're now in session. Agreed. Tracy, could you take us through the members' decision?
Okay, members have approved the application unconditionally.
Thank you very much. We now move on to agenda item number 12, which is North 2 Mark Farm, Stonykirk, Stranraer. Planning application for a change of use of agricultural land to form a private outdoor riding arena and erection of 1.5 metre high fence. The planning application is 19/1352/full, and David will take us through this presentation.
Thank you, Chair. We get quite a lot of these type of applications. Normally they're dealt with under delegated powers, but in this instance, as you'll notice, the applicant is the husband of one of our planners, so it has to come before committee. The red line just shows the boundary. You can see it's next to the existing agricultural buildings. An aerial shot of the same. So this is where the site is proposed is just to the left of the track there, just beyond that hedge that you can see. A bit closer in, so that's the land to the side of it. This is looking back, so on the right-hand side is where the arena would be put. Another more detailed view, looking up through the field. And that just gives you a location plan and the overall farm holding. And then just a section through the site, so it's fairly standard arrangement with for a horse arena where you'd have the surfaced level over there and then a fence running around the outside. So it is something that requires planning permission, but as I say, we find them quite commonly. So the recommendation is to approve.
Thank you, David. Members, questions to Case Officer Archie?
I'd just like to ask the question, if we took the photographs, if it was Billy Murray, could we not get Iona to take the photographs and save a bit of diesel?
Point noted. Conflict of interest.
Any other questions to Case Officer Andy?
Yeah, I'm just interested in the recommendation, David. Obviously, I think we should, when we get to that point, approve it, but is it not a bit restrictive? Because if it's only, so that means that relatives couldn't come and use it.
David?
That's a fairly standard condition that we use for these things, just because, well, we have actually had some potential enforcement cases over time of people bringing in lots of friends and family, so it becomes a little bit of a gymkhana going on, which annoys neighbours. It's really just restricting it down to being a private use and not a commercial use.
Thank you. Members, we're now in session. Agreed. Tracy, take us through the decision.
Members have approved the application subject to the condition in the report.
Thank you, Tracy. Agenda item 13, consultation regarding an application made under Section 36 of the Electricity Act 1989 for the proposed HARESTANDING wind farm comprising of the erection of 17 wind turbines, maximum tip height 149.9 metres, and associated infrastructure on land falling within the South Lanarkshire Council area at proposed HARESTANDING wind farm site, South Lanarkshire. The application type is a Section 36. And this is really just for noting. Is that correct? It's an appeal decision for noting only. The members noted. Thank you very much. There's no further business for the chairman, so thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you.